President Trump has promised a $12 billion bailout for struggling American farmers caught in the crosshairs of his trade war with China.
They're great people. They're the backbone of our country.
But in the Midwest, the heart of Magalan, the president's trade policies have sown months of economic pain. Soybeans are America's #1 agricultural export, and China had been the #1 buyer. But no more.
Hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like nobody's ever seen. What we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that, and we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers. And we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me.
Good to see you again.
The hope had been that a deal struck in October with President Xi on rare earth minerals would also persuade China to buy American beans again.
But he's a very tough negotiator.
China promised to buy 12 million metric tons of soy, but as of last week, it had bought less than a quarter of that. And just as American farmers have been frozen out, their Argentinian rivals have been making big money. President Trump's decision to help his friend Javier Milei with a $20 billion support package
Make Argentina great again, it worked.
has only antagonized his base, who see it as a direct assault on the America First philosophy. A second flashpoint for the president's shifting trade policies are chips. The US had banned advanced chips from being exported to China, but last night the president conceded on that too, allowing Nvidia to sell higher caliber H200 processors to China with a 25% cut to the state. In the US, many lawmakers, including Republicans, worry China is too far ahead in the AI race and want more, not less, restrictions on tech exports. Meanwhile, China has been trying to be more self-sufficient in its quest to integrate AI into its economy. Chinese robotics are state-of-the-art, but their domestic chips remain behind America. And there's a conflict there, with companies desperate to get across new Nvidia components, while Chinese authorities want more innovation to be sparked at home. President Trump still loves tariffs and says the income is making America rich.
From me, I want to say thank you for this bridge payment. It's Christmas early for farmers.
But behind the payouts, there are problems building up, with a hard year ahead for farming and even harder talks with China yet to come.
Trump's relationship with Europe, however, seems to be less warm, more permafrost. While European leaders have been tiptoeing around him, the US president has continued chipping away at the continent and those who lead it, saying that Europe is not doing a good job, blaming it for the war continuing in Ukraine, and saying that Russia is in a stronger position. Well, let's go to Washington and our US editor, Anushka Stana. Anushka.
We've known since Friday that this administration is changing tack on the issue of Europe. They wrote it all down in their national security strategy, which was very critical of Europe on Ukraine, as you say, but also on migration policy. And Donald Trump, in an interview with Politico today, has really doubled down on all of that. I came away from that interview thinking he really doesn't like President Zelensky. At one point, he compared him to P.T. Barnum, who, if you recognise the name, is the character on whom The Greatest Showman film is based, someone who's associated with the circus but also was criticised as promoting hoaxes. And it is that part of the legend that Donald Trump was focusing on, saying Barnum would sell things to anyone even if they didn't work, suggesting that Zelensky had done that with the White House when it came to backing Ukraine. He also repeated those attacks on migration policies, made clear he's happy to endorse right-wing or even far-right parties in Europe, and was very insulting about European cities. Have a listen.
In my opinion, many of those countries will not be viable countries any longer. Their immigration policy is a disaster. If you take a look at Paris, It's a much different place. I loved Paris. It's a much different place than it was. If you take a look at London, you have a mayor named Khan. He's a horrible mayor. He's an incompetent mayor, but he's a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. London's a different place. I love London. I love London. And I hate to see it happen.
And he really doesn't like Mayor Sadiq Khan either, does he? How's the mayor responded to these tirades?
Well, in some ways, they've heard it all before, but I do know that it is upsetting for him and it is upsetting for his team. Sadiq Khan has asked why President Trump is so obsessed with him. There was one line that they thought was quite different, in which Trump basically said Khan had been elected because so many people had come into the country. A suggestion, I guess, that migrants coming in had elected him. It is worth pointing out that Sadiq Khan is no more a migrant than Donald Trump is. They were both born to immigrants in England and here in the US. Now, Sadiq Khan has tried to hit back at Donald Trump, saying, is he talking about the Americans fleeing America to London to look for liberal values? As for beyond Sadiq Khan, speaking to officials, they were pretty shocked by the national security strategy, but they still really want to maintain the focus on the positives in this important relationship.
Anushka at the White House, thanks very much indeed. Well, joining me now from Brussels is the former EU ambassador to the US and the UK, João Vale de Almeida. Mr. Ambassador, good to have you on the programme. When you see
thank you for
and when you
hosting
hear,
me, Matt. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, and when you hear what Trump is saying about Europe, but the EU, the entity that you've represented both in the US and the UK, why do you think that he's really got it in for Europe?
Well, first of all, I'm very sad to hear these kind of statements. We got used to, statements by Mr. Trump, which are a little bit out of the box, of the normal box. But I think this time, both with the national security strategy and this interview, a few lines were crossed. I mean, we understand and we even enjoy the fact that our partners are interested in Europe, and so does Mr. Trump. But one thing is to be worried or concerned or happy. The other thing is to directly interfere in our political processes, and accusing our leaders and insulting our mayors and endorsing parties in our political system, which happen to be on the fringes of the political spectrum, most of them anti-European, some of them even anti-democratic. I think this is a line that should not have been crossed.
Okay, it was a line that was crossed by the Vice President, J.D. Vance, when he made, a jaws drop at the Munich Security Conference with a speech that sounded remarkably like what Donald Trump was saying today. So this is not an aberration. This seems to be an attitude, a consistent one from the administration. So given that, why are European leaders still kissing the ring of Donald Trump in a cringeworthy way? Why does he call him daddy? I mean, this has got to stop, hasn't it?
Well, I think we have an approach to international relations and to peace keeping and peace making, which is different from Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump is impatient. I heard him say that, and commentators say that today. He has his own deadlines for personal and maybe even family
but hang on, sorry to interrupt
reasons.
you,
But this is not the way we run policy in Europe.
Yes, but
we need to look at the long run.
Doesn't work.
We need to look at the long run. What's at stake here is the security of Europe at the end of the day, be it the 27 or the UK. So our approach is to be, first of all, united, and I'm happy to see the coalition of the willing strongly together. I was happy to see the meetings yesterday in London and last night in Brussels. I think we should continue to do that. But there's one thing I would like to add, Matt. I think this is also an occasion for Europe to step up its efforts in creating political clout, in creating additional defense capabilities. So if there's one thing that Mr. Trump could be useful is to wake up our survival instincts. But I cannot accept, and I don't think we should accept that he doesn't show respect for Europe. He is actually showing more respect for Russia than he is for Europe. And that is not good for the EU or the UK.
And he did some of that in his first term in 2016, and he's been critical from the very beginning. When will Europe finally wake up and speak with one voice on Ukraine and do what needs to be done to give the Ukrainians the weapons that allow them to not be defeated? Because at the end of the day, Trump is pointing at the EU saying, you guys are not doing enough.
I think what we need now is additional leverage regarding Russia and regarding the United States, and of course, additional supports to Ukraine. One key decision will be the one regarding the Russian frozen assets. I think it will
When's that
be
going to happen?
a very key moment, and I hope it will happen next week. I count on it. I think that the conditions are met for that. But this is an example where Europe shows leverage, but we need to continue to do the heavy lifting here. And it's a lot easier for Mr. Trump to accuse the mayor of London or the leaders in the countries in the European Union of being weak and whatever. It's a bit more difficult to build the conditions for solid and sustainable peace in Europe. And that's the job we're trying to do.
Ambassador João Vale de Almeida, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.